Ken, thank you very much for agreeing to be grilled in the CAF at your Rugby site and answering commercial motor reader questions. And I must say, we've got plenty of them for you.
Great.
Now, before we get started, tell me a bit about Moto. You are the biggest motorway service provider, I believe?
Yeah, we're the largest motorway service operator in the UK. We serve probably more than, over the course of an average week, more than 1 million cars will come into Moto.
Wow.
We have about 120 million people coming into Moto sites over the course of a year. And from an HGV perspective, we again have the most number of parking bays on our sites. We have something like 165,000 HGV drivers will come into a Moto site over the course of a week. And we have typically about 2,300 lorries will be parked with us overnight, typically Monday to Thursday.
So how many sites do you operate?
So we operate typically about sort of 60 or so motorway service area sites across the UK.
And all of them have truck parking?
Not all of them, because we've got a legacy of some smaller sites from the past, and then the sort of the more, as you're seeing here at Rugby, the larger sites. And we are in Scotland, Wales and England, but not in Ireland.
Okay. What's your background then? How did you get into this sector?
Well, if I went right back, I started my career in a completely different sector. I joined the Royal Navy at 16.
Oh, okay.
I then, after 5 years, sort of ended up in retailing with a company called British Shoe Corporation, so that was shoe retailing. So again, completely different.
Yeah.
Did 4 years there, but then I made a move into sort of food and grocery retailing by joining Tesco back in 1990. And I spent 14 years at Tesco, and the last role I was about to embark upon was the chief executive of Tesco in Japan.
Blimey.
However, having just got there, I was approached to see if I would join the operating board of Sainsbury's and join Justin King for the 3-year turnaround of Sainsbury's, which I did. Then I was approached about becoming the chief executive of Greggs, and there's a fast forward a connection back to Moto, because when I was at Greggs I did a deal with Moto to get Greggs onto Motorway Services.
Oh, did you?
Exclusively. And then after 5 years at Greggs, I then went to the UK's largest food services company, Brakes, and then I've been at Moto now for 4 years, just over 4 years.
Yes, this is a fantastic site, and it's award-winning as well, isn't it? Tell us about that.
It is, and look, we're enormously proud of it. We spent just north of £40 million developing this site. It's our first new site, believe it or not, in sort of 13 years.
Is it?
The previous new site would have been Wetherby on the A1M. So look, it's taken a long time to get the planning and then to build it and open it. We were slightly hampered in our desire to get it open with COVID, but we eventually did manage to get it open in 2021 in the April. So it's been open 18 months, and we did a huge amount of research with motorists, customers, HGV drivers. We did panels, we did questionnaires to find out what they wanted from a motorway service area. And what you see at Moto Rugby is the best of the feedback from motorists around what they wanted from motorway service areas. We scored 100% customer satisfaction in 2022's Transport Focus survey, so we were absolutely delighted and thrilled with that.
Yeah, that's brilliant, isn't it? Now, we normally conduct these interviews over a fry-up, but you can't actually get a fried breakfast here. So why is that?
Quite early on, when I first joined, sort of four plus years ago, it's very clear. There was definitely a desire from some customers to have a plated breakfast. Unfortunately, the sales were in decline of plated breakfasts, and actually at the same time, the growth in companies like Greggs and Pret and others who'd moved into the breakfast market, it was purely down to popularity and volume of breakfasts that were being requested. So we had to make quite a tough commercial decision that we just didn't have the volume of plated breakfasts to be able to provide in all of our sites a regular everyday plated breakfast.
It's a shame for the evening, you know, a driver's been out on the road all day and they turn up here, might want a hot meal. Their only choice is Burger King or KFC, I guess, isn't it? There isn't a...
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what they want. And I think you're right. We've definitely had fairly consistent and regular feedback from HGV drivers that they still aren't happy with the overall choice, particularly if you're out on the road Monday to Friday. You do want, I think, typically what we get feedback on is a plated meal with meat, 2 veg would be kind of perfect. We're doing more work to try and find a brand that would actually provide that facility for specifically HGV drivers, although I think there may be a market for others, not just HGV drivers. But at the moment, the feedback we had is the likes of Burger King, KFC are still amongst the most popular national brands in the UK. And scored very highly with motorists in terms of what they would like to see on motorway service areas. So we continue to listen to the feedback.
Don't get me wrong, I've thoroughly enjoyed my Greggs sausage roll.
No, I think, look, there is, what we're trying to do is cater for 120 million people that visit over the course of the year that have quite diverse and high expectations of what they want in terms of choice. And there's only so much that we can do, and what we're typically trying to do is please everyone as best we can.
Okay. Right, let's get on to these reader questions then. First one. MSAs are private businesses, so obviously need to make a profit. Presumably this comes from car drivers who spend less than an hour at a time and probably spend 20 quid on food and drink. Lorry drivers, on the other hand, spend far longer at your sites and spend less per hour. With this in mind, do you wish you didn't have to accommodate trucks?
No, quite the opposite. Look, we are very passionate about HGV drivers. I think that really came to light during the pandemic. They became, I think, the unsung heroes.
Absolutely,
in terms of they keep the UK moving. They keep vital foods and medicines, the whole sort of infrastructure building. I mean, everything, food into supermarkets. It's typically HGV drivers that are keeping us functioning as a country. So rather than seeing them as do they spend less, we see them as a customer that we need to provide the right facilities to allow them to go about providing the vital services that they provide. And there's a number of different ways that we need to provide those facilities for HGV drivers. Everything from free toilets, showers, through to food, drink, and then where we can with the space, somewhere to park safely and securely overnight so that they can get that vital rest.
How much does it cost to park a truck at this site overnight, and do you consider it to be good value for money?
So this site's about £31. On average we're about £26. It varies. I think our lowest is probably about sort of £14 a night. And I do think it's good value. I'd obviously love it to be cheaper if we could make it cheaper. I think it's even better value if you also add in the fact that we offer for £3, £10 of food and drink vouchers.
Oh, okay.
So
£34 with a £10 voucher.
Yeah, and so what we typically think of here is, look, we're providing the shower facilities, we're providing the toilet facilities, we're providing somewhere to park, we're providing the colleagues that will provide you with food and drink. We're providing, through our contractors, the cleaning and maintenance of these facilities. So, you know, in the round, we sort of look at the price in terms of for parking in the round of what are all the services and facilities that you're getting for that amount of money.
I see. So we've had lots of questions about security, as you can imagine. Let's start off with this one. Do you consider all your sites to be secure?
Look, as secure as we typically are able to make them, given I couldn't sit here and say they are 100% secure, because the minute you have organised and targeted crime, as HGV drivers will know, as I know, as the police know, it's pretty difficult to make somewhere 100% secure if you have got very targeted and deliberate crime and intent. What we try and do is adjust the security on each of our sites based on the security risk that we see. So we go everything from CCTV to metal fencing around the parking area specifically for HGV, to manned patrols through the night if we feel a particular site has got increased risk.
So they don't all have that then?
They don't all. We do it based on a targeted basis. If we have significant examples of crime, and that, by the way, might not be just on a moto site. If in a region or an area there's increased crime, then we will typically, often when we've got HGV drivers alerting us to the fact that they think there is a potential risk, we will react to that and increase the security on a site-by-site basis.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good question. This reader asks, truck thieves frequently operate with vans. Why can't you simply have a barrier that stops vans entering the truck park?
Yeah. It's a great question. I think the challenge we have is we're trying to keep our sites operationally efficient. And if you think about, if you take Rugby, we've got space for 100 HGV drivers to park. In a morning or later in an evening, the logistics of them trying to get in and out past a presumably metal gate to increase the security would logistically cause us some real challenge around the space will be required to allow a sort of an in-out with a barrier. The second problem we've experienced in the past with barriers is, unfortunately, they get vandalised quite quickly and smashed through. And that, by the way, can be as much sort of organised crime as it can a lorry. Maybe not intentionally, but can just go through one of our gates. So it's largely around the operational efficiency of getting HGVs in and out of the parking bay. And look, one of the biggest problems we've got is there is insufficient HGV parking spaces across the UK, and we've got the same challenge on motorway service areas because the demand is great. So I think if we put barriers in place, I think that might cause us even more of a logistical problem for HGV drivers than it would actually solve problems.
Someone says here, your truck parks are small and the spaces are cramped. What's stopping you making bigger sites, and would you if you could?
Oh yeah.
I'm assuming planning permission is a nightmare.
Absolutely right. I mean, it frustrates me so much. Look, I've been to an all-party parliamentary group looking into HGV driver conditions. I've made it very clear, and I'm on record as saying the biggest frustration that we have is planning. It's unfortunately extremely difficult for us to get the planning that we need on our existing sites to put in more new dedicated HGV driver parking spaces. We have had some success, so we've increased Reading as an example by about 150% the amount of parking that's there, but it can take years, and in some cases you don't get the planning. A good example of that is we wanted to open up a dedicated truck stop. We wanted Rutham in Kent, where we know there is a significant shortage,
problem,
to provide 200 or so dedicated truck stop parking spaces, and we've been refused by the council. And so we'll continue to push on all of our sites where we've got land available. We'll continue to push for more planning. We are appealing, and we'll go back again in Rutham. We're appealing to the local council that we think there is a solution that would work and fit, and we'll continue where we have got permission for extensions, as we've done at Reading, to put in the additional spaces. There's something like close to a shortfall in the UK of close to sort of 4,000 parking spaces. It's almost as many parking spaces as Moto currently have. You'd almost have to build another Moto to meet the demands in terms of the shortfall of number of dedicated HGV parking spaces.
So should the government get involved? Should there be compulsory purchasing land?
I think so. And not only that, I think they've got to, with local authorities, they've got to be much clearer around where the need is, and also make that a requirement of the local authorities to actually provide for HGV drivers those parking facilities. It's not translated from a national need into a regional requirement, and therefore if the government don't start to set regional targets that are implemented, I predict in 5 years' time we'll be no further forward than we are currently today.
Right then, is there Wi-Fi at your truck parks? If not, why not?
Typically not.
Do you think that would be a good thing? A practical thing?
Do you know, I've never really thought about Wi-Fi where HGV drivers are, but it's a very good and very sensible question, actually, because the difference for HGV drivers is if you are staying overnight and you're in your cab, having the Wi-Fi available in the main building is not that helpful.
No.
We typically don't do the car park because we're assuming that people are coming in, because the most used facility on motorway service areas is still today toilets. So most people are typically coming out of their cars into the main building.
And of course you put the toilets right at the far end, so they have to pass all the retail outlets on the way. Well,
it's interesting. I think historically, if you go to different motorway service areas, that they're actually not all at the back. We've got some of ours there first in flow as you come in, some at the back, some in the middle. They are definitely at the back here.
Yes.
And that was a conscious decision, I have to say, by my predecessor and the team, because the plans had already been put in place before I arrived, and the steel work had already been started. I have to say, if I had the opportunity again, we'd probably look at locating the toilets somewhere more convenient.
So have you ever slept in a truck at one of your sites, and do you think that would be a worthwhile exercise?
I've not slept in a truck. I have used the shower facilities, and I try and the facilities and the services that HGV drivers use, I try almost on a weekly basis to ensure that I am getting around sites and experiencing. It's not, by the way, showers every week. It'll be the toilet facilities, the food, the drink. So when I'm going around sites, I'm constantly looking, and we'll do a walk around the whole of the site to see what an HGV driver or any of our other customers are experiencing. I've not slept in an HGV.
But if ever you feel like doing it, we'll happily organise it for you.
It'd be a great experience. Do you know, interestingly, having started my career in the Royal Navy, I've got a couple of my ex-Royal Navy friends who are lorry drivers. I don't know how they'd feel about us sort of reuniting and me sleeping in their truck. But yeah, I'd be very happy to do it. I mean, I've sort of grown up always trying to experience what the customer experiences. So whether that's, we have on a number of our sites, hotels, and I've stayed in one of our hotels, or using the shower facilities or the toilets. But there's one thing that I haven't done, so that would be a good opportunity. I'm not sure if you're proposing that I'm sharing with someone, and I don't know if...
No, you can have your own one.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
Truck parking is always so far away from the main building. Why can't we have our own toilet block near to the trucks, and that might stop some drivers urinating, or worse, he says.
Yeah.
Because it's a very old walk from there to the toilets.
Look, we'd struggle with most of our sites. We've already commented and discussed the fact that we don't have enough HGV parking spaces, let alone building a separate toilet block, which would take up more space.
Yeah.
You've got all of the plumbing and everything that would then need to go into a separate toilet block. Look, I do have some sympathy that it's a fair walk, but typically, if you look here, for somebody parking in a car at the furthest part away, HGV drivers are actually not that much further away, if indeed no further away than motorists who are having to park furthest away.
It's a long way at 2 o'clock in the morning, though, isn't it? If you need to use the
yeah,
toilet.
we try to make sure it's lit up. We try to make sure that there's easy access in and out, and I don't know. The biggest problem is I don't know where we'd get the space to build a separate block, and it would add even more cost, because then you'd have 2 locations that you're having to keep clean and on top of. So yeah, it's a nice idea, but I don't think one that commercially would make sense.
Any chance of having showers with toilets in the same cubicle?
Yeah, we've typically found it's better for us to have all of the toilets together, purely from a plumbing and management perspective, to have the shower facilities separate. Look, I'll be a little bit brutally honest here. Unfortunately, some drivers will use the shower facilities as a make-do toilet, and that's not acceptable, and maybe sort of plays to the point that if there was a toilet alongside the shower, that might actually prevent them using the shower as a sort of a makeshift toilet. I think the biggest challenge we would have is retrospectively going back to our existing sites and putting toilets alongside or in with the showers. We just wouldn't have the space to do that. Our toilet blocks have to cater for mass numbers of people. I mentioned earlier 120 million people visiting moto sites a year, 1 million or so.
That's phenomenal.
These are huge toilet blocks, and so I know we don't have the space to put toilets into our existing showers, because what we're trying to do at the moment is add more showers, because we know from feedback from HGV drivers we don't have enough showers, so we're rolling out additional shower facilities, and also they want the existing estate refurbished and upgraded, which again we're also doing. We're sort of through about 35-40% of our sites now. We've upgraded the toilets and the shower facilities, and we've got plans to continue upgrading those over the course of this year.
Great. One more shower question. When you turn on your shower at home, does it stay on, or do you have to press the button every 10 seconds to keep it running?
Yeah, look, it's a loaded question, and no, I don't have one at home that only stays on for 10 seconds. Look, we need to provide showers that, from a drive, because it's typically it's HGV drivers, not many other people use the shower facilities, that are operationally efficient and working well, and there's nothing more frustrating. I find this when I go swimming with my daughter, for example. I was recently at Centre Parks, who I think had the same facility where you go into the shower facilities in the swimming area, and they're a push on, push off. So no, I don't have them at home. Is the short answer.
I didn't think you would. Ken, that's it. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
Great to see you.